All right, so you can look right here, Cliff. So tell us what you discovered at 661 Factory Street.
Well, there's a project that's been developed. It was over a year ago, the Sewell's Island development plan. And you can see on my Facebook page, I posted it up where you got some of the photos and looking at it, that there's a link there that you can take a look to see what the city's come up with, or at least what this development plan is. And, I don't know if it's a coincidence that 661 does not appear, the building itself does not appear on the design of that development. And it's interesting, and I'm not suggesting that they just didn't see the building or maybe thought that they might build around it or didn't include it. It could have been any of those things, but they just didn't have that building included. Now, of course, you saw the people be put out on the street at midnight, right? And code enforcement went over and said that they didn't want to put them back in an unsafe building. Well, the fact of the matter is that building has been in the condition that it was for a long time. In fact, when Sean McWayne, the former code enforcement man, was there, he knew about all the issues that were going on. He didn't pull the trigger like what this guy did. And when Dana went over there at that time of night, they said, they couldn't put them back and couldn't knowingly put people back into an unsafe building. Well, it was no more unsafe that night than it was the week prior to when they did what they did, the city did. And so I've said all along, after talking to several firemen, that they could have put a fire watch person there that evening, gotten with the building's manager the next day and also the owner, and gone through what it is that was going to need to be done. Now, if it's a fire system, they did get it reset, but it didn't look as though they were willing to work with her. And I don't know that there was any correspondence between the code enforcement department and the owner of the building prior to this action being taken by the city. And so the question comes up as to why did they do that in this way? Then they left it up to the county to fix it after they created the problem. The problem was created by the decision that was made that night. And the county had to come over and clean it up. And then on the radio, the hotline interview that Jeff Smith did with Mayor Graham, former Mayor Graham, the other day, he said that it's not the city's business to take care of this type of thing, that the county has the resources. And so he has no interest in doing anything, it appears, from what his conversation was, to fix the problem of homelessness that's caused by drug usage and also mental illness, which was apparent from my being over there that day, talking with Tony and seeing the people there. So, coincidence, maybe, what the design was for that area of our city, but it certainly looks like gentrification to me because of the development that they would like to have over there. And then you're talking about not having an unsightly building in that location where they had other plans for it, apparently from the map that you saw in the design that I posted. So it was just, I thought, coincidence, and also something I think the community wanted to know, or should know, in their consideration about how this city does its business. I think we need transparency here. And if it wasn't the case, then they need to explain how that was left out of the design originally, what the thought process was of the designers when they obviously went over to Sewell's Island and the surrounding area and decided on what would be there. And that building was not included. Certainly, that building, there's a place for a building of that type for overnight stays by kayakers or other people visiting our city that are using the Black River. And to work with the owner to develop a place that maybe looked a little nicer certainly would have been something they could have done. But it doesn't look as though there was any conversation being had. So that's why I thought it was interesting when I saw that.
Yeah, it's a little suspicious that these plans have come out years ago, at least a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And 661 Factory is no longer there. They show some kind of cafe there in one of the pictures.
Yeah.
One of the site plans shows a tree. A tree there.
A tree.
So it is awfully suspicious that they are having this place condemned, and now the place is for sale.
Right.
And it seems to me that it's going along with their plan to redevelop that.
Right. Well, you would think that they would redevelop the rest of the city. They certainly have had plenty of opportunity to do things with other areas that they haven't. And so, yes, I'd like to see Sewell's Island developed. And certainly some of the pictures and photos that they showed and the design renderings that they made look nice. But, when you're talking about property rights, I think that the best way is to talk to the owners. If you want to purchase that land from her, that building, and you have something else in mind, I think there's probably an easier way to go about doing that without forcing people out into the night as they did, and then not providing any place for them to stay, nor food or anything else, leaving it up to the county. I would have thought, and I think a lot of people in the community have the same questions that I do.
It definitely feels like the city or even the developers are pushing the owner to sell this property. It would be interesting to see who buys it.
Yes. What I heard was a good friend of mine who worked in the code enforcement department before went down there. I recommended he talk to her, and she asked him to come down, and they went through the whole thing. What was proposed and what was said by the city's code enforcement would have been quite costly, and everything that they had suggested wasn't something that they had to do, but they wanted them to do. $80,000 is the price tag that my friend had said would be needed to and be invested into just electrical alone. And he says, and the code was asking them to move electrical entrances and boxes and everything else, which makes all the other wires shorter. So it was an insurmountable amount of work the code was asking for the owner to do from what he had said. And if that's the case, if there was a list, you could go down through and make those changes and be in compliance. But of course, it's been said that any building that's put into condemnation will never come out of condemnation, and that's been true about other buildings in the city. So it's my feeling is before code enforcement could condemn any building, should I be elected as city councilman, there will be a conversation. There will be a history of correspondence between the owner and the city, Watertown, helping businesses to comply with things that might be creating an unsafe situation for tenants that are in there. And it will be up to the city council to decide whether something should be condemned. And certainly we'll have some plan in place should something be needed in an emergency, like a fire or something, like what they did with the Midtown Towers when those folks had a fire. The city acted and had buses over there for them to stay in. They had food arranged and then housing arranged, and that was taken care of in a better way, a much better way.
Yeah, the county did a great job
Oh, the
over
county
there.
did. Yeah.
I wish
great.
we could say that about the city, but obviously they didn't do that well of a job, I don't believe.
No, I blame the mayor of the city for that, Jeff Smith. He says that he didn't know anything about it until later, right? That Ken Mix made the
Yep.
call. If I were the city's manager, I certainly wouldn't be making that decision without contacting the
I'd
mayor.
be definitely
I think.
interested in to figure out who buys this property now and
Right.
where it goes forward, and to see if any of these drawings and pictures that are available come to fruition. It'd be very interesting to see how this plays out, and who's got their hand in the cookie jar on this one.
Well, yeah, there are a lot of questions for sure. But I appreciate you asking me, and I'm glad you noticed that I put that post up. I think it's just something the public should take a look at, and maybe they'll find it as interesting as what I did.
Right, I hope so.
Okay.
And maybe we can shed more light on this, and maybe what do you think about trying to talk with the owner about her reason to sell? You
I
think
have
that's
her-
possible?
I have her number.
Okay.
It occurred to me when I first saw the picture up on News Junkie that they posted that link. It didn't surprise me that was the decision she made, because of what I know and have come to understand about the list of many, many, many things that they keep piling on. And I've heard from other people in the community that they would comply and they would get the building or the property that they had that they were told about into compliance, at least from what they understood was needed, and then something else was discovered. Maybe it'll be the heating system, that needs to be replaced. So when you start to look at a cost-benefit analysis of a building of that type, yes, there's some income from the tenants being there renting 35 units. You do the math. But then at some point, are you going to win the battle and be able to get your property back so that it can be occupied with this city the way it operates from what we've seen? It's doubtful. Something needs to change, and I think it will, should we have different leadership this after November.
All right, Cliff, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.